The honourable member from Calgary Heritage.
I rise as a voice for the great people of Calgary and for our vibrant Jewish communities. In the solemn silence of the Sabbath, violence and terror ensued last Saturday. The chosen friends that I have had, the chosen family I get to make, like so many of you from across Israel, began to text. They began to text as they learned and watched the documented evidence of atrocities. They watched babies being thrown into cages. They watched seniors being dragged across the street. They heard news of young people reveling in joy and song and love being slaughtered. They watched wanton destruction of terrorists roaming the street of the country I've come to love in the many times I've had the honor to visit. And now 7 Canadians lay dead. I'm here just to say a few things. The first is, Israel has the right to exist. The Jewish people, as indigenous to the land, who through the modern state of Israel, tell the story of the most remarkable indigenous revival on planet Earth. And the world is long overdue in recognizing this Israeli legitimacy, this Zionism. Terror runs across the streets of this great country, this amazing, remarkable democracy. Its legitimacy, Mr. Speaker, is being challenged yet once again. Which brings me to my second point. Israel has the right and indeed the obligation to defend itself by itself. In 1948, the world's establishment had argued against its existence as less permanent than other nations. It is a logic that strays dangerously close to anti-Zionism and through it, actual anti-Semitism. Time and time again, Israel has proven them wrong. Against great odds, fighting to preserve its state, proving beyond any doubt its ability to defend itself and its capital. In most incidences, such strength would be taken as an example of Israel's permanence. Yet each time the Jewish state is forced to sue for peace and grant concessions to its enemies who have only one goal: destroy the state, eradicate the people. We stand with the reservists and security services that bring order to Israel by weeding out hundreds of Hamas terrorists, by rescuing hundreds of innocent hostages, and by ensuring Hamas is dismantled and never capable of this again. And third, Mr. Speaker, anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. At rallies sprouting up across our land, extremists celebrate rape, murder, and kidnapping by Hamas, calling for actual incitement of violence against our treasured Jewish communities. Extremists celebrating actual hate crimes and actual war crimes constitute an affront to the peace and freedom of all Canadians, especially our Jewish communities. For all the misery, murder, and chaos across Israel and Gaza, Hamas is responsible. There is no equivalence. Hamas is responsible for the deaths you see on the streets of Israel and for the loss of every innocent life to come. Gaza has not been occupied for more than 18 years. For 18 years, it has been part of a Hamas terror factory backed by a clerical military dictatorship in Iran, and it is time to dismantle all of it now. So, Mr. Speaker, in this terrible test, when the calls for appeasement and restraint come, when it's hard to stand with Israel, pay attention to those who actually do. Because under attack by land, by sea, by air, and a firestorm of rockets, infiltrators kidnap and kill innocent civilians. There is no equivalence to be made. Hamas is responsible. Now, this is hard for me because I spent a few years living in the desert under bombardment of Iranian rockets, and I know what it's like. So in the hours and weeks, in the dark months ahead, in the trying times of our defining age, may the blessing of the memories of those who have been murdered over this last week, of those who have been sent to gas chambers, of those who through the millennia have survived, may their blessings fortify us to get this job done, because Am Israel Chai. Thank you.
Question et commentaires.
questions and comments, the Honourable Member for Kitchener Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member for Calgary Heritage spoke about difficult time in months and weeks ahead. I want to share with him the words of a critical care physician in Gaza right now. These words are, "The situation is catastrophic. The hospital he works at is currently powered by a generator, having lost electricity for the past 5 days." His words, "Once the fuel inside the hospital vanishes, we will face a bad situation. We will turn into a big mortuary, a big grave." Can the member speak to what he feels needs to be done to protect lives in Palestine right now that are in the midst of this kind of devastation?
L'honorable député de Calgary.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
To thank the honourable member for the question. 24,000 liters of water have been stolen by Hamas. Hamas has been constantly subjugating humanitarian supply chains and requisitioning it to support their own terror apparatus in this region. Hamas is what is holding the peace and safety of Palestinians back, not some morally equivalent argument about international institutions. At the end of the day, when we care about the prosperity and the peace that the Palestinian people deserve, what needs to happen is that Hamas must be defeated once and for all.
L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
I'd like to thank my colleague for his intervention today. You know, we have heard that there are about 150 Canadians in Gaza right now. We also know that the hostages that have been seized by the terrorist organization Hamas are in Gaza right now. We also know that 50% of the population in Gaza are children that have had nothing whatsoever to do with the horrific crimes committed by Hamas. Does this member believe that those people, those Canadian citizens, those people that have been held hostage against their will by the Hamas terrorist organization, and those children deserve to receive punishment?
The Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
Thank you for the question. I thank the honourable member for the question. Hamas is holding those people hostage. Hamas is using these innocent civilians as a means to shield their terror apparatus, and they have no desire, no plan, no stated objective to ever stop. They proved just 1 week ago to what extent they will commit wanton acts of murder against innocent civilians. They have proven over the last 18 years, Mr. Speaker, how ready they are to sacrifice Palestinians for their own demented cause. So Hamas is responsible for the safety and the security of those Palestinians, and Hamas is responsible for all that is to come. Thank you.
We have time for another good question. The honourable member from Mount Royal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to congratulate the member of Calgary Heritage on his excellent speech. I think, like many Jewish Canadians, I've taken great comfort from the debate tonight, the general unanimity in the House that Israel has the right to defend itself within international law because it was attacked by a terrorist entity, and we're all better off if that terrorist entity is destroyed. I'd like to ask the member, there tends to be places where Israel is treated differently than every other country in the world by some people, and I wonder if he might extrapolate a little bit about how this has taken place in this context.
The honourable member from Calgary Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I thank the honourable member for his commentary. Israel has always been held to a separate standard than other states. For some reason, when Israelis and Jews and those who live within its sovereign borders are attacked, they are immediately compelled to restrain themselves, to find ways to be more civil, even though, as a democracy, as a professional military, they go above and beyond the standards that are required than most countries do. So, Mr. Speaker, we find that Israel is constantly singled out as a country internationally. Its Jewish people are often identified as colonial settlers when, in fact, they are indigenous people who have revived the state and set an example in modern times. We have seen, Mr. Speaker, how Israel is seen in our academia, in our nonprofit community, and many other places as somehow subjected to a different standard and to anti-Zionism. In campuses across the country, Mr. Speaker, we have seen this distortion of facts and reality, of the actual truths of what modern Israel is built upon.
And I thank the honourable member for the opportunity to point out how unfairly Israel is characterized across the world. Thank you.
Resuming debate, l'honorable député d'Aiglin.
The honorable member